7. Caroline Caldwell is very skilled at separating brains from skulls. She does it quickly and methodically, and she gets the brain out in one piece with minimal tissue damage. She reached the point now where she could almost do it in her sleep. In fact, it's been 3 nights since she slept, and there's an itchiness behind her eyes that isn't eased by rubbing them. But her mind is clear, with only the very slightest sense of a hallucinatory edge to that clarity. She knows what she's doing. She watches herself do it, approving the virtuosity of her own technique. The first cut is to the rear of the occipital bone, easing her slimmest bone saw into the gap that Selkirk has opened up for her, though the peeled back layers of the flesh and between the knobs and buds of exposed muscle. She extends that first cut to out either side, taking care to maintain straight horizontal line corresponding to the widest part of the skull. It's important to have enough room to work in so she doesn't squash the brain or leave part of it behind when she takes it out. She journeys on, the bone saw flicking lightly back and forth, like the bow of a violin, through the parietal and the temporal bones, keeping the same straight line, until she comes at last to the superciliary ridges. At that point, the straight line ceases to matter. Instead, X marks the spot. Dr. Caldwell draws the saw down from the top left bottom to right, then up again from bottom left to top right, making 2 slightly deeper incisions that cross at the midpoint between the subject's eyes, which flicker in rapid saccades, focus and defocus in restless busy work. The subject is dead, but the pathogen that controls his nervous system isn't even slightly deterred by the loss of a steering consciousness. It still knows what it wants, and it's still the captain of this sinking ship. Dr. Caldwell deepens the intersecting cuts at the front of the skull, because the subject's sinuses, in effect, create a double thickness of bone there. Then she puts down the bone saw and picks up a screwdriver, part of a set that her father received as a free gift from the Reader's Digest publishing company when he subscribed to some of their products more than 30 years previously. The next part is delicate and difficult. She probes the cuts with the tips of the screwdriver, levering them further open where she can, but making sure that she never inserts the screwdriver's business end deep enough to damage the brain beneath. The subject sighs, although he has no need for oxygen anymore. Soon to be done, Dr. Caldwell says, and feels foolish a half second later. This is not a conversation or a shared experience in any kind. She sees Selkirk watching her with a slightly guarded expression. Picked, she snaps her fingers and points, making Selkirk pick up the bone saw and hand it back to her. Now she's engaged in a bullet of infinitesimal increments, testing the skull with the tip of the screwdriver to see where it moves, going in with the saw again, where there's resistance, and gradually levering the whole top of the skull loose in one piece, which is the hardest part now done. Lifting the front of the calvarium, Caldwell snipes loose cranial nerves and blood vessels with a number of 10 pulses grip scalpel, lifting the brain gently from the front as it comes free. Once the spinal cord is exposed, she cuts that too, but she doesn't try to lift the brain all the way out. Now that it's free, she hands the scalpel back to Selkirk and accepts a pair of snub-nosed pliers with which she removes very carefully the few jagged edges of bone that stand proud from the rim of the hole that she's made in the skull. It's all too easy to gouge throughs in the brain as you lift it through that makeshift trapdoor, and then it's such of limited use that you might as well throw it away. Now she lifts it with both hands from underneath, teasing it up with the tips of her fingers through the opening of the skull without even letting it touch the edge. And it sits down, with great care on the cutting board. Subject number 22, whose name was Liam, if you accept the idea of giving these things a name, continues to stare at her, his eyes tracking her movements. It doesn't mean he's alive. Dr. Caldwell takes the view that the moment of death is the moment when the pathogen crosses the blood-brain barrier. What's left, though? Its heart may beat, some 10 or 12 times per minute, and though it speaks and can even be christened with a boy's name or a girl's name, it's not the host. It's the parasite. And the parasite, whose needs and tropisms are very different from human needs and human instincts, is a diligent steward. It continues to run a wide range of bodily systems and networks without reference to the brain, which is just as well seeing as the brain is about to be cut into thin slices and set between glass plates. Shall I take the rest of the spinal cord out? Selkirk asked. She has the tentative, pleading tone in her voice that Caldwell despises. She's like a beggar on a street corner, asking for money or for food, but for mercy. Don't make me do anything nasty or difficult. Dr. Caldwell, who is preparing the razor, doesn't even look around. Sure, she says. Go ahead. She's brisk in her manner, even surely, because this part of the procedure, more than any other, hurts her professional pride. If anything were ever to make her shake a fist at the untended heavens, it would be this. She's read about how brains were sliced and mounted in the good old days before the breakdown. There was a device called Athlon, an automated lathe ultramicrotome with its diamond blade could be calibrated to slice brains into perfect cross-sections of single neuron thickness. 30,000 slices per millimeter, give or take. The best that Dr. Caldwell's guillotine can manage, without smearing and crushing the fragile structure she wants to look at it, is about 10 slices per millimeter. Mention Robert Edwards to Dr. Caldwell. Mention Elizabeth Blackburn, Günther Blobel, or Carol Greider, or any cellular biologist who ever got the Nobel Prize, and see what she says. More often than not, she will say, I bet he, or she, had an automated lathe ultramicrotome, and a Team 0.5 transmission electron microscope, and a live cell imaging system, and an army of grad students, interns, and lab assistants to handle the dull routine of processing, so the Nobel laureate would be free to waltz in the moonlight with his friggin' muse. Dr. Caldwell is trying to save the world, and she feels like she's wearing oven mitts instead of surgical gloves. She had her chance once to do it in style, but nothing came of it, and here she is. Alone, but completely unto herself, still fighting. Selkirk gives a bleat of dismay, jolting Caldwell out of her profitless reverie. Spinal cord is served, doctor. Level with the 12th vertebra. Toss it. Dr. Caldwell mutters. She doesn't even try to hide her contempt. That was chapter 7 for you. Let's jump into chapter 30. 30. Melanie doesn't dream. At least, she never has before tonight. There were fantasies she indulged, like the fantasy of saving Miss Justineau from monsters, but sleep for her has always been an untime spent in unspace. She closes her eyes, opens them again, and the day recycles. Tonight in the garage, it's different. Maybe it's because she's outside of the fence, not in her cell. Or maybe it's because of the things that have happened to her today are just too vivid and too strange for her mind to let go of them. Whatever it is, her sleep is lurid and terrifying. Hungry soldiers and men with knives lurch at her. She bites and is bitten, kills and is killed, until Miss Justino gathers her in her arms and holds her close. As her teeth meet in Miss Justino's throat, she snaps instantly awake, her mind wrenching itself away from that unthinkable prospect. But she can't stop thinking about it. The nightmare lays its stifling folds across her thoughts, and she knows there was something inside the dream images, some hidden payload that she will sooner or later have to face. There's a sour metal taste in her mouth. It's like the taste of blood and flesh, left behind a vengeful ghost. The mulchy, textureless food that Miss Justino gave her shifts queasily in her stomach when she moves. The garage is dark, except for a little filtered light. Moonlight it must be. From around the edges of the door, silent, except for the level breathing of the 4 grown-ups. The red-haired soldier, who's one of Surgeon's people, murmurs in his sleep, shapeless words that sound like protest or pleading. After a time of staring into the dark, Melanie's eyes adjust. She can see the outline of Miss Justino's body, not close, but closer to her than the others. She wants to crawl over to her and curl up against her, her shoulders pressed into the precisely right-shaped arc of Miss Justino's lower back. But with the atmosphere of that dream, she can't. She doesn't care, and she doesn't dare. And the movement would make the bucket and the canteens clang together anyway, which would wake everyone up. She thinks about Beacon and about what she said to Miss Justino that time in the classroom after the charge of the light brigade lesson. It stands out very clear in her mind, and it's easy to remember the exact words, because this was the conversation that ended with Miss Justino stroking her hair. "Will we go home to Beacon?" Melanie had asked. "When we're grown up?" And Miss Justino looked so sad, so stricken, that Melanie had immediately started to blurt out apologies and assurances, trying to stave off the effects of whatever terrible things she'd inadvertently said, which she understands now. From this angle is obvious. What she'd said about going home to Beacon was impossible, like hot snow or dark sunshine. Beacon was never home to her, and could never be. That was what made Miss Justino sad, that there never could be a going home for her that meant being with other boys and girls and grown-ups, and doing the things that she used to hear about in the stories. Still less a going home than had Miss Justino in it. She was meant to end up in jars in Dr. Caldwell's lab. This time she's living in now was never foreseen or intended, not by anyone. That's why they keep arguing about what they're going to do. Nobody knows. Nobody knows any better than she does where they're really going. That was the end of chapter 30, and after chapter 7. I hope you enjoyed. I'm